Disclaimer: if you identify yourself as a Loki fan, a Loki fanboy, or a Loki worshipper, then stop this video and leave this page now. You'll do yourself a favor and avoid being triggered like one of those hypersensitive people from Tumblr. Go on, I'll wait. Done? Okay. Viewer discretion is advised. Loki is a unique frame, not because of his trickster abilities, but because he's currently the only Warframe in the game that is called broken because his kit is simply too perfect, if that makes any sense. You could argue that Excalibur also has a kit that's too perfect, but that's ignored due to the fact that Radial Blind is his only somewhat defensive ability, but even then it doesn't cover a large area by itself. You can build for power range, but while that may solve the range problem, it will severely weaken the rest of his kit. Even if you just build for max power strength like every other Excalibur, you'll still need a Trinity to cover your energy consumption. This is the type of problem that Loki doesn't have, since his abilities cover every possible scenario that can occur in a mission. If Loki's being chased by every mob on the map, he can drop a decoy down on the side to draw the aggro away from him, or he can go invisible to completely lose the enemy. Speaking of invisibility, it might just be the strongest invisibility skill in the game, since Loki gains stealth damage multipliers for his melee weapons while invisible, even if enemies have been alerted. If Loki has to save a teammate from death by mobbing, all he has to do is go invisible and switch teleport with his teammate, with or without safeguard switch equipped. Now we get to Radial Disarm, Loki's bread and butter. Radial Disarm is the ability that you will be spamming the most on defense and survival missions, due to its ability to disarm most enemies in the game, including some infested, for an infinite amount of time. On the off chance you have a radiating disarm equipped, you also apply radiation procs to them, basically transforming your Loki into a living maxed out Narman focus tree. Before I explain what could be done to make Loki a little more balanced in terms of his universal potential, I'd like to say that some of these changes might not work in our current stealth system, so it would be best to wait for Stealth 2.0 to be released before you even consider any of these. Anyways, let's talk Loki. His decoy should be untouched, as it does its job of removing aggro from yourself and or allies just fine. It's duration based and it has health of its own, so there's nothing to complain about here. His invisibility is problem number 1. It grants stealth damage multipliers for melee at all times when active, and it doesn't have any drawbacks like Ash's low duration on smoke screen or Var's energy drain per second. For this, I'd like to suggest a solution: unmuffled footsteps. In our current version of stealth, if you're invisible you can run around as much as you want, unless you're playing Ivara, and not be detected, as long as you don't touch any enemies. For Loki, I'd suggest that he retain his invisibility along with its high duration and stealth damage multipliers, but at the cost of not having silent footsteps, meaning that you can still run while invisible, but doing so while enemies are around will alert them. My reasons for this are primarily to give some form of careful use to invisibility, because after all, you're stealthing in a mission, not speed running, and also to encourage players to experiment with other stealth frames. Loki's switch teleport is useful when you have to get yourself or a teammate out of trouble. Whether it be to avoid death or a bombard's rocket. Switch teleport isn't the problem here, safeguard switch is the problem. If you're not aware, safeguard switch's invulnerability period can be increased with duration mods, up to 15 or 16 seconds total. If you build for power duration as Loki, which you should since you're playing Loki, you automatically give allies 10+ seconds of invincibility just by teleporting with them. This can either be a huge lifesaver or an ultimate exploit, depending on how you use and interpret it. For safeguard switch, I have two possible solutions. Either A, the duration of safeguard switch is decreased to 3 seconds down from 6 seconds. Or B, safeguard switch's God mode period is replaced with an all status proc immunity period. I highly suggest that only one of these suggestions is used, as both will just completely destroy safeguard switch. If you're still dubious about me saying that Loki is problematic, have a look at this. Loki is one of 2 warframes in the game that costs 75 platinum on the market, the other warframe being Volt. Loki is also one of the only warframes in the game who is surprisingly easy to craft, unless you somehow find neural sensors difficult to get. Loki also has the highest base sprint speed in the game. For some reason. To his defense, you might say, well, he's a trickster, he has to be fast in order to quickly move around the battlefield. To which I would agree with you. However, you forget that other mobile warframes exist, like Volt, who is quite literally the space ninja embodiment of Sonic the Hedgehog, and Zephyr, whose description even says that she's mostly made of oxium, a substance that is lighter than air. When these warframes are clearly meant to be mobile warriors, why have they been given the shaft over Loki? This is the problem with Loki. His ability to remove enemy aggro, go invisible, teleport, and disarm enemies make him excel at every task he performs while having little to no downsides for being played. You could argue that Loki is a squishy warframe because of his low health, shield capacity, and armor, but that's irrelevant, because with the abilities he's packing, there's no reason his health or shields should ever be a problem. If you can see now, it's tricky to make Loki a fair frame to play without completely obliterating his kit. Remove or even slightly tweak one of his abilities and you'll get a near-instant backlash from the Loki Master Race fan club. On the flip side, if you buff him, Loki will just become that much better over every other frame. For now, Loki's a tough nut to crack. His skills make it difficult to make him a more balanced frame while at the same time keeping his identity and widespread support intact. You might be confused by what I've said here. If Loki is so difficult to change, why is the Nariman focus tree getting a free pass? The Nariman tree is different. Yes, it provides Loki-like abilities to whatever warframe has the Nariman tree equipped, but it takes significant time and effort to even get half of the tree maxed, thanks to the focus points cap we have. To wrap this up, allow me to say again that I don't hate Loki, I have nothing against Loki players. And I'm not one of those crazy people who actively wants Loki to be nerfed. It's just difficult to present Loki in a negative light without taking flack from the peanut gallery. Thank you for watching.